Welcome to Your Financial House here at Five Plan Partners, and today's topic is lifestyle, international travel. I have with me a dear friend, a gentleman who was a fellow classmate at Samford University and who I just think the world of, Doug Wilson. And I want to tell you about Doug because today we're going to talk about international travel because it's part of people's lifestyle, and that's very important. But to understand why I asked Doug to be here, you need to know this. Doug is the co-founder of Counter Threat Group. They conduct comprehensive threat assessments for business, churches, and organizations to help reduce the risk of active shooter events or other violent occurrences. He also consults businesses, student groups, and individuals on international travel safety and conducts travel safety seminars. You also need to know that Doug Wilson retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2011 from the 117th Air Refueling Wing of the Alabama Air National Guard after a 28-year career with the Air Force and Air National Guard. Throughout his career, he's done some incredible things as he's been involved in Operation Denny Flight, which was Bosnian Operation Allied Force in Kosovo. He was activated within an hour of the September 11th terrorist attacks and was soon a participant in the war on terrorism, including Operations Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, and Noble Eagle, with deployments that spanned from 2001 through 2011. Doug is also the Assistant Vice President of Advancement at Samford University, where he and I first met as classmates, and he's gone on to make a huge impression on that university, as well as contributing to the lives of so many people in giving them wisdom and insight that when they travel and enjoying their lifestyle, these are things to make sure that trip is a great trip. Doug, I hope I gave you enough credit there.
Very nice, great.
The resume is unbelievable. You know, what do we do? Do we need to be concerned? Do we need to be worried?
Well, what I say is that there's an array of things you need to look at anytime you're looking at traveling to another country. You need to know what the threat situation is there. Have they ever had incidents of terrorism, or is there any kind of threat of terrorism right now? That's something that everybody's concerned about. You also have to look at criminal and crime type statistics for where you're going.
Sure.
And then, of course, the health concerns. Every country has got different issues concerning health, and some require vaccines, some don't. Those are the kinds of things you need to look at. You know, currently we are dealing with the coronavirus. This too shall pass.
Right.
And not trying to downplay it, but, you know, my biggest concern with those kind of things is the amount of quarantines that are going on in so many countries right now. And so what you really have to look at before you travel, and as we speak, a lot of airlines are offering, you know, wave-free travel changes because of the temporal coronavirus that's going on. But, you know, it's not so much catching it, which is, I'm not trying to downplay that, but you don't want to get stuck in a country in a quarantine situation. You have a lot of people that got stuck on a cruise ship, and a whole lot of them got the virus because they were stuck on a ship that didn't really understand how to quarantine people effectively and keep the medical emergency
That's
away.
a great example.
So you don't want to get stuck in another country in their healthcare system. If I'm going to get stuck, I prefer to stay here. And so I think that's the biggest risk you run into, you know, during these types of health concerns that do happen cyclically with different sorts of, you know, you had SARS, MERS, and some other things. Now we have coronavirus.
Absolutely.
So,
they will always be there.
They will always be there.
And they can hit at any time.
And they're temporal. So, but you should always look at the health section of the travel.state.gov site that our State Department puts out. And it will always give the latest update on health concerns for any country you're traveling to, and it will tell you the kinds of vaccinations you need before you go.
Right. So in the financial planning process, you know, we've got clients that go, okay, yeah, I want to go to this country, or we want to take this trip. This has always been on our bucket list. Do you advise them to buy the insurance?
Yeah, I do. I think the travel insurance is a good thing. Speaking personally, I have a trip scheduled to Italy next month, which has now been canceled. And fortunately, that travel insurance is something that will, you know, allow you to either postpone or get your money back. However, with the current virus going on, some travel agencies are, you know, waiving that as well.
Right.
But I do think the travel insurance, if you're booking through a tour group, is a wise investment because you don't know what can come up with you personally over a 6-month period or however far in advance you plan it that could cause you to have to cancel. So I'm a believer in that.
Yeah, and then because it could be, we've talked about viruses and health issues, but then also some kind of terrorism or something could take place in that area and you want to cancel
or
that.
Personal family medical emergency where
Right.
you can't go on the trip all of a sudden. So, yeah.
Right, so that would be the first step in booking that trip. Then from the standpoint, what do you need to do from there just to have peace of mind?
Well, from there, I always suggest you do all the reading and research on any country, and there's so many popular European destinations that are very popular to travel to.
Very much so.
They carry a general State Department level 2. There's 4 different travel advisory levels.
Mm-hmm.
1, normal conditions. 2, exercise, increase caution. 3, reconsider travel.
Right.
4, do not travel.
And how do you look those up?
If you go to travel.state.gov,
Okay.
very simple, travel.state.gov on the internet, you will get to the State Department site,
Okay.
click on international travel.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty intuitive, and you just plug in the country you're going to. Okay. It will give you the threat level, and you're going to see a whole lot of 2s in a lot of European countries. 2 means exercise increased cautions. That's because of a pervasive, ongoing threat of the potential of terrorism. It doesn't mean there's something specific or something is about to happen. It just says the threat is there.
Right.
And so you're going to see that, and that is concerning to some people. But what we try to do in talking to people, before they travel internationally, is there's a lot of things you can do to reduce the risk of you becoming a victim of crime or
Mm-hmm.
terrorism just by changing your behaviors.
Okay, talk about that.
And one of the things I want to mention on the terrorism side, if you look at when all or most terrorist incidents happen anywhere they are in the world, 99% of the time they're going to happen during peak times at popular places. Right. So if you think through that, and you want to go do these things in these countries, for instance, in 2015, Paris had a terrible terrorist attack. It was a November evening. I think you remember that.
Yes.
And they hit a very popular nightclub. They hit some very popular cafes in a very popular area of Paris. It was a Friday night. The maximum amount of people were out enjoying their evening. If you look at a lot of terrorist incidents that have happened in England and other places as well, there have been a lot of them that happened during weekends at popular places.
Yeah, so go Tuesday or Wednesday instead of Saturday.
If I want to go to that performance at a nightclub, or I want to go to that really nice cafe, instead of going on a Friday or Saturday night, just change the day you do it. Go Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. You don't hear of terrorist incidents very much on those days.
That's a great point.
And so you can still enjoy the place, and it's probably going to be less crowded, but then you're doing it at a time that they're not going to hit during non-peak times.
Right.
They want to have max media coverage and max carnage, so they're going to hit during the busy times. And I say the same thing, you have to be very careful about mass transportation anywhere in the world, and I consider New York and D.C. in our own country in that too. But if you can avoid traveling on mass transportation during peak times, do that. You can't always do it because of things that you're involved in, but if you can alter the times and just stay off mass transit during the non-peak times, you have again significantly reduced the risk.
So like on Friday when everybody's getting off from work and everything's jam-packed, right?
Yeah, that's a peak time, and they have hit. Spain got hit really hard a number of years ago. England's had it with the tube in London. So they do still target public transportation, and that is something that they keep their eye on. And if you ever are on some of these subways and metros in different cities or overseas, the security's a little bit lax. There are a lot of people have backpacks. You don't really feel like even though the security's gotten better, there's still a lot of folks can slip through there. So if you avoid those, again, it's altering the time you do things. That's one of the best things you can do. You can't eliminate the risk, but you can significantly reduce it just by doing those basic things.
And then be alert, I guess.
Be alert, be vigilant, always be looking around. What I tell people as well, anywhere you go, look at the exits. If it's a restaurant, if it's a public building, if it's a museum, take a few seconds to look around and see where the exits are so that you have already pre-thought if something happens, depending on where that activity's occurring, you've already pre-thought other ways to get out. It takes just a couple seconds, and it's a good habit to get into even in our own country because, with active shooter and those types of things, we are all vulnerable to some extent. So you always want to know ways you can get out of buildings that you're in.
Then what about in terms of passport and ID and your money? What do you recommend? Because that's going to become a big issue, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but by October everybody's got to have the STAR ID as well, or take the passport with them wherever, even if they're staying in the country?
You either have to have the STAR ID just to travel domestically on airlines in our own country, or if you have a passport. I think it's a good idea for everybody to have a passport. They're good for 10 years. And if you don't get your star ID in time, have your passport with you, and that will get you through. But when you're traveling internationally, you know, I look at the passport, that's your ticket home. Okay. So you look at that, that's gold.
Well said.
You have got to keep up with that passport because you're not coming home without it.
Right.
I also recommend you make a color copy of that important first two sections of the passport. Keep a copy with somebody at home. Keep one in another place in your luggage or somewhere not where your passport is when you're traveling, because if you did lose it, it makes it a lot easier to renew that passport if you've got a color copy.
And what about a picture or something that's been scanned that's on your iPhone? Is that a good idea to do that as well regarding the passport, or is that?
Yeah, I think if you had that scanned in a file that's not easily accessible, but you do have that on your phone somewhere, I think that's another safeguard just to have it. Yeah, you don't want to have too much personal information on it, but if you had your picture on there, that'd be okay. And if you had a way of blocking out the codes, that's all right. But I think the paper copy is your safest bet.
Okay.
The other thing I'll say about safeguarding money, and this is one of the better tips I think that people tend to gravitate towards. When you're traveling, particularly in Europe, a lot of European destinations, pickpockets are very good at what they do. And a lot of people think, I'll know what's going on. You won't know what's happening. I mean, they can take your stuff.
They practiced a lot.
It's unbelievable what they're able to do, and I've witnessed it. I've seen it. And so I talk about a dummy wallet. You never want to keep your real personal stuff. When you're in a big crowded city, you might be Rome, Paris, London, wherever. I like these things that go around your neck that you can put your passport, your credit cards, and your money in. It goes around your neck and under your clothing.
Okay.
If they're getting things off of your neck, you've got other issues to worry about. They're typically not going to be able to get something that's on a cord around your neck under your clothing.
Right.
It's not that uncomfortable, but you'll feel very safe about, hey, I know all my stuff's safe. You don't have to worry about pockets and backpacks. What you do want to think about is if you got in a bad situation and you got cornered and somebody's really trying to do harm to you because they want your stuff, well, give it to them, but don't give them your stuff around your neck. I call it a dummy wallet. It's some cheap wallet or old wallet that has real cash in it. It might have euros or whatever the currency of the country is. It might have American dollars in it, but they're real, and it may be $18 or $20 or $25.
Just enough to let them know here it is.
It's real. It's real stuff. It's real euros. Then you have some different cards that look like they're official, but they don't give anything away about you. It may be old, movie cards or passes for this or that may have your name on it, but nothing else. Don't put your friend's business card in there, but you'll have some things you'll have some legitimate looking things in there. So if the person looks at it, they see money, they see identification, they figure they have your credit cards. So 90% of the time they're going to leave you alone. They got your stuff, and they really don't have your stuff. But they do have some real money, and in their mind they've got your stuff. Or you can throw it to them. If they say there it is, and they'll go down the ground and look at it.
Right.
Most of the time, that's going to get rid of the situation. So it's a good thing to have for these kind of situations where you're cornered, where you feel threatened, and they're about to rob you. You've got something you can give them without giving them your real stuff.
Right.
So I call that the dummy wallet. I think you also use it in big cities in America, too.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Just take it with you. You'll probably never, ever need it. The money will always stay there. But when you need it, you got something you can give people.
Yeah, well, it's like we say on doing the financial blueprint. If you go on and plan in advance, chances are that situation won't occur, but it won't hurt to plan for it.
Absolutely.
And the same applies there. And the other thing is I really appreciate this discussion because of the fact, our clients will sit here and go, well, we can't do this because we're afraid of taking this trip. Well, you can't live your life in fear, and at the same time, just learning to be smarter about things and understanding the details, as I like to say, that confidence and knowledge help us confront the fear, and the planning process and the lifestyle room says you can take this trip, just think smart when you're doing it.
Yeah, don't travel less, travel smarter. That's what I say.
Okay.
And one thing I'll say real quickly about that, confidence, you hit on it. Always be confident when you're overseas like you belong there. Whatever city you're in, act like you belong there and you won't attract attention.
Yeah. So do your research.
Do your research.
Know where you're going.
You will get lost. I get lost. Anytime I travel to another country, there's times I have no clue. I took the wrong street. I don't know where I am. Don't act like you don't know where you are. Act very confident.
Right.
Just don't pull a map out in the public view and start looking around because you might get help and it might not be from somebody that you want help from. And so you duck into a store, a restaurant, a pub, or whatever it is. Get your bearings. There's usually somebody inside that will probably help you, but you can pull your map out inside where you're not in the public view so you don't look so obvious. Wow. So looking confident in anything you do, and part of that is the way you dress, the styles that Americans wear are not always the styles that they're wearing in the countries that you go to. Be observant of what they wear and how they dress in these countries so that you don't stick out as an American. You don't want to wear anything that has American sports teams, universities. You want to minimize advertising America when you're traveling. Be proud to be an American, but when you're overseas, don't promote it.
Or as the saying goes, when in Rome.
Exactly.
When in Rome.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, I greatly appreciate this insight. Is there a website they can go to get additional information?
Yeah, they can go to www.counterthreatgrp group. It's grp.com. www.counterthreatgrp.com.
Okay, that's great.
And we have a travel section on there that has some of the links to the State Department and such. So
that's fantastic. Well, this is why we share this information, because in the planning process, it's one thing to say that you've achieved your goal, and yes, you can go on that trip, but we want to make sure that you enjoy it, that you know what you need to do in preparing for the trip, and then when you're there, that you're confident. Because you're living your dream. As we like to say at Five Plan Partners, our core focus is to help our clients live better, richer, fuller lives. And this is just one of the ways you can think smarter and know what to do. Doug, I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Being here, Greg.
It's great information.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for
Thanks
sharing.
very much.